because God gave us livers down here that nobody else has. Cheers to that.
Joining us is Luka Čutura, part owner and head distiller at 7-3 Distilling. Luka, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. How nice is this to come hang out with some friends and promote New Orleans?
You started it off real. That's perfect. Your story, though, is pretty incredible, and it's about as Louisiana as it gets. Growing up in your family's oyster business, guiding swamp tours, how did these past experiences lead you where you are today now, part owner and head distiller at 7-3?
Well, everything plays a big part in where I'm at today, what we're doing today. And it all started, I grew up stocking some pretty prominent restaurants that serve char-grilled oysters in downtown New Orleans. Croatian people, we fish oysters for a living. But one day I was scraping the barnacles off the boat on the shipyard, and I was asked, man, you ever thought about getting into swamp tour business? You enjoy people. So I started with that, and then I met up with my partner who is today that used to be a waiter at Outback, Jeff Rogers. And he's like, you Luka? I said, yeah. He said, what do you know about the swamp tour industry? And I said, oh man, it's saturated. There's quite a few swamp tours in the Honey Island Swamp. And next thing you know, about 2 months later, he showed up with his first boat. He bought on his credit card, and now we have 22 of them.
Wow.
Sharing the gem of the South, which is New Orleans.
That's beautiful. That's fantastic. We can get more into swamp tours because I've always been fascinated by the leaders of those tours and how close they get to the alligators. And
oh, yeah.
It's amazing. But we talk about New Orleans and this culture all the time. This, like you say, this is like the gem. But you've bottled it basically with your product here. Talk about how that came about. You're representing 73 neighborhoods, hence the 7-3, correct?
So our distillery name is 7-3 Distilling Company. There's 73 neighborhoods that make up the city of New Orleans. So every label, every bottle is a neighborhood. Starts off with St. Roch Vodka, Gentilly Gin, Bywater Bourbon. We have Black Pearl Rum. But now what you're pointing out on the table is our signature bourbon. It is the Whiskey Tree, and that's my neighborhood where I grew up, the Honey Island Swamp.
Oh, yeah.
The story of the Whiskey Tree is very captivating. People enjoy it, and we have captured that whole story, that experience in a bottle.
Tell us about the Whiskey Tree.
Well, as you're looking at the bottle, you'll notice the actual whiskey tree's on the bottle.
Yeah.
And you got 2 P rows below it, and 1 P row is just a person in it with no goods, and they're taking the high road. They're the bootleggers from the city of New Orleans. This all took place between 1920 to 1933, which is a time that we called Prohibition. Nobody could buy, sell, and manufacture liquor. So one of those P-Rows is the bootlegger. He's taking the high road, the highest ground between Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River, Highway 90, Old Spanish Trail.
Yeah.
Across to the North Shore, Old Chef Mentor, to the 190 Trail, which leads to the most beautiful black clear bayou that you can imagine, which is Maple Slough, which brings you to the Whiskey Tree. At that time, it was a meeting place. And people say, well, how do you know that? Well, it's situated halfway between the origin of the cocktail, which is New Orleans, and what was a place that was always considered the moonshine capital of the South, which is Kiln, Mississippi.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know Kiln had that history.
Oh, yeah. Lots of history comes out of Kiln. But from Pearl River to Kiln, all the ancestry made moonshine. But really what makes that such a key component about what we do today, and we're talking about Whiskey Tree, is because we had a visitor come to New Orleans in 1924. He found out that we wasn't following the rules. Izzy Einstein was his name. He was a federal agent. And he showed up performing an experiment. Which city can I go in and get the quickest cocktail? They say he landed at the train station. He caught a cab. He asked the cab driver that question. He reached under his seat and grabbed out a bottle of bourbon. It was 36 seconds. At that point, they brought in multiple agents, shut down 86 establishments, and at that moment, the Honey Island Swamp and the Whiskey Tree became the highway for shine feeding the city of New Orleans.
Became very popular pretty quickly. Explain these 3 bottles here.
So the first one that we came out with is the red label, which is the Whiskey Tree Weeded. The second one we came out with was the green one, which is the Whiskey Tree Rye. And the first one is the newest one, the blue label, and that's the Whiskey Tree Right now, it's the Whiskey Tree Bourbon, but it's actually a 4-grain. Now, all of these kind of angle a different market in the world of bourbon. The green one is the one that we just won the most prestigious award you could win for bourbon in the United States, which is San Francisco Worlds. We won double gold with 99 points.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you must be very proud. In fact, your signature is on the bottle, right?
Yes, sir.
As the master distiller.
Very, very proud to pour Whiskey Tree.
Now, you've gotten all neighborhoods covered, right?
No, sir.
You don't have Lakeview yet?
And I don't know that we'll ever have all the neighborhoods covered, but yeah, 73.
I asked because I grew up in Lakeview.
It's something we got to think about.
All right. Yeah, we got to come up with that. I'll help you with that one. If someone's trying 7.3 for the first time, what's the one bottle you're putting in their hands? Where are they starting?
You know, you're not supposed to have any favorites when you're talking about your kids,
Yeah.
right? At the end of the day, there's different markets for each bottle that we have. But the one I enjoy sharing the story about, because it encompasses who we are, is the Whiskey Tree. With the history of New Orleans and how people know New Orleans and the story of bourbon. You see, all roads for bourbon end in New Orleans. And I say that because the original story for bourbon and how as it was coming down the river from Kentucky and it went from a clear corn whiskey down to a brown spirit, and they didn't know it till they popped the bong on the barrel, it was refused at first. And then people have come to enjoy and love that bold bourbon flavor. So I question everybody who comes to the distillery, where was bourbon invented? Very controversial, huh? Where was bourbon invented?
Because Kentucky will claim it, right? Or Tennessee, well, they'll claim the whiskey.
You can actually make bourbon anywhere in the United States. But the story of bourbon, New Orleans is very influential when it comes to the history of bourbon.
Hence the New Orleans being the beginning of the cocktail, right?
The origin of the cocktail,
It's
that's
amazing.
right.
I hear you're a tailgate chef extraordinaire. We can tell a story there because I understand that the LSU Clemson game in Baton Rouge on the 5th, you may be cooking and you may be pouring.
That's something we do. They slide me in places that I don't even know I'm going. But every time we show up, it's always an event. If it's not an event going in, we make it an event. That's what New Orleanians do.
Yeah, what's going to happen on that September 5th?
Well, we know there's going to be a big game.
Yeah.
We're not sure the details just yet.
There's a new coach at LSU.
But we know they'll be having St. Rock being poured, and they'll be pouring Whiskey Tree at that tailgate for sure.
Wow. Well, it'd be worthwhile just getting up there.
Oh, yeah.
May not make the game after that tailgate experience.
Most people don't make the game.
They got the radio on. They're going to just stay with the bourbon.
That's right. That's right.
Can we talk a little bit more about your work with the oysters? And I know you mentioned that you've worked with some of the great restaurants like Tommy Satanovich and Drago's. You know, Tommy's going to be out at the Zurich Classic, and he has been year after year after year. Talk about that experience that you had.
So I'm first generation born and raised here. My dad came over here from Croatia in 1973. Second day in America, he was on an oyster boat.
Wow.
Now we have a fleet of them. I grew up stocking Drago's cooler with oysters. But in Croatia, we have grape vineyards. We make wine. A byproduct of wine is going to be a brandy. Brandy comes from fermented fruit. Whiskey comes from fermented grain. So if you ask me, did I ever think that I'd be making bourbon at the volume that we're making it now? No, I never would have believed that. At the end of the day, I travel the world studying with some of the greats when it comes to distilling and blending. And everything I learn, I apply to what we do. People ask me the question, Luka, you haven't really been making bourbon a long time in the grand scheme of things. I mean, I was just blending in France in a distillery that started in 1296. So I take those old world French techniques and I apply them to new world bourbon. So they ask me, you haven't been in it for long, but yet you've won some pretty prestigious awards. All we're doing is applying the things that we know second nature down here. We all cook. We all enjoy. Most of all, we pay attention to what our palate tells us. So I figure out different ways to soften and round the finish. You know, have that fruity front come to your palate as soon as you taste it, to where it just takes you on a journey.
Wow.
Everything we do is an experience here in New Orleans.
Oh yeah. Where can the consumer find, particularly this bourbon?
I'm gonna say all of your small liquor stores and all of your major places that sell bourbon in Louisiana. We just got into Mississippi, and we actually just got into Texas, but we've just sold a few barrels in Texas as of now. So eventually, look, every time you attack another market, it costs more money
Sure.
to grow and advertise. So yes, we're in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Texas. But go online. Online, you could also buy from some bourbon retailers online.
Right. I would imagine the honors you just received in San Francisco have caused quite a stir, and people are, coming to you asking you the same question: where can I find it? Where can I find it? So it's gonna stead well for you, I'm sure.
I just shared with you, I showed up at a place this Saturday in central Mississippi. There was 1,000 people in line at least. And all I could do was walk out the store and walk down that line, high-fiving people.
Wow.
To know that everybody that knows you don't really know, because there's no real metrics when you see who sees you on social media. But I could tell you, people are truly enjoying whiskey.
You had a tasting event?
It was.
It's wonderful.
Yes, it was at Spillway Liquors, the biggest liquor store in Mississippi, and they do a bourbon event that people come from all over the Southeast to visit.
Lined up.
Bourbon drinkers love bourbon and the story that goes with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell us, how do you see this year unfolding for you going forward and into the next year?
Well, growing, and more growing. Look, entrepreneurship's not for the faint of heart. You've probably heard that before. Yeah. It doesn't stop. And the great thing about doing what I do is I get to see facial expressions. I get to hear feedback about what we're doing. And then I have people on my team that translate the numbers. As long as we're up on an uptick, we're doing the right thing. It's completely up to us. Yeah. The more people we touch, the more people we get to share our story with, and the more people we get to host here in New Orleans, that just keeps increasing the places that we're able to sell.
If somebody just needs to meet you and hear this story, and it's gonna become like the influencing story for someone that's wanting to jump into these bottles. It's fascinating.
Mr. Mark, I've had some pretty amazing visitors. You know who visits New Orleans, yeah. And we're about 5 blocks out the French Quarter, and I have 1,000 barrels full of bourbon. And they're backlit in purple, green, and gold at nighttime. We do events, but we got bourbon coming off the stills every day.
Wow. It's exciting. If someone can visit.
Yes, sir. 7 days a week. We do tours and tastings.
Very good.
Yeah, we just reached 1,000 5-star reviews for the distillery.
Give us your address.
301 North Claiborne Avenue.
All right.
3 blocks off a canal, 5 blocks out the quarter.
It's right in the center right there.
Yes,
That's
sir.
fantastic. It's great stuff. We love your story and what you're building. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Luka Čutura with 7-3 Distilling. There's so much we can talk about, and I got to take that tour. Got to come over to Claiborne and take the tour. But let's talk about how bourbon, the name, came about and the connection of this particular beautiful tree to Princess and the Frog.
Well, I'll tell you, people ask me that all the time. They like, Luka, was bourbon invented in New Orleans? And I turn around and ask them, I said, what do you think? And right away, people say, no.
Right.
It's Kentucky. And, maybe so. But that doesn't negate the fact that I have a story to tell. And that story is, in 1791, the French down here in New Orleans connected with the French in Kentucky. And they wanted a clear corn whiskey. So what they did was they got these sardine barrels, and they charred the inside of them. They filled them with clear corn whiskey. And they put them on rafts, and they came down the Ohio River and the Mississippi River all the way down to this little cut in New Orleans called the Bywater. Because back then, New Orleans received everything by water. The French popped the bong on the barrel, and they said, it's spoiled, no good.
Yeah, it's not clear anymore.
Because it's brown.
Right.
So they broke apart their rafts, bought the fastest horse that they could find. They outrun the Native Americans and the British back up the trail, the Natchez Trail, to tell them that the client wasn't happy. Well, think about what's going to happen in the next week or two. We have the Derby coming up. Years and years of fast horses going up there. Then came 1805. What happened in 1805 is they invented the paddle wheeler. That enabled them to carry commerce down and upriver. You ever seen those old pictures of the barrel of those paddle wheelers with over 1,000 barrels on them?
Yeah.
They were coming down the river instead of 7 months, it was 3 weeks. They came down to the bywater, they popped a bong in the barrel, and they said, wait, this isn't as brown as the first stuff that we got. But we learned that we like the brown stuff better than the not-so-brown stuff. Then came Prohibition, 1920 to 1933. Nobody could buy, sell, and manufacture liquor. So when those tourists were on those paddle wheelers at that time coming down to New Orleans, they'd get off the boats and enjoy their time in the quarter. They'd get back on the boat. They'd tell the bartender, give me that Bourbon Street whiskey. Give me that whiskey that bartender on Bourbon Street gave me. Give me that bourbon. So I'll be the first to tell you, we may not have invented bourbon, but without New Orleans, bourbon doesn't become what it is today.
Yeah.
And you know where that story comes from? Just about every distillery you visit in Kentucky will tell you that same story. You know why? Because they've always been very grateful for the most heavily sought after market for bourbon, all the way back to the early 1800s. And you know why that is? Because God gave us livers down here that nobody else has. Cheers to that.
That's beautiful.
That's the story of bourbon. Now, how does that tie into what we do with the whiskey tree? Well, the whiskey tree, y'all, I shared the story of the whiskey tree with you, an abbreviated story of the whiskey tree. But if you fast forward to from Prohibition to 2008, I had some guests in the boat one day with me, and they said, Luka, can I come back and video you sharing that story, telling that story? So they came back and they put two 360-degree cameras on the boats, and they had me go back and forth, so they can capture every angle on that approach coming up to that tree. Our whiskey tree inspired the wishing tree for The Princess and the Frog, the Disney movie.
Wow, yeah.
And then if you look at where the distillery is, we're about 8 blocks from the kitchen. Leah Chase,
Right.
Doogie Chase's.
The inspiration behind Princess Tiana.
That's right. So right there where we're at is truly what people are chasing. People tell me all the time, they're like, Luka, I don't know why I love coming to New Orleans so much. It's not just the food. It's not just the cocktails, the city. It's Southern hospitality. Yo, we take this for granted all the time. We're taught to love at a young age. You know, deliver that Southern hospitality. The only way to achieve fulfillment is by serving others. And we do it by telling our stories.
God, that's beautiful. Well, thank you so very much. Again, you can take a distillery tour on Claiborne. 7-3 Distillery is ready to see you. And thank you for putting a little bit of New Orleans in every one of your bottles. Deeply appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
All right. We've got more coming up. Stay with us. Hey, y'all, go ahead and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel and turn on your notifications. Please follow us. We've got new shows each and every week. And a very, very special thanks to all of our sponsors who are making this possible. Have a great day, and we'll see you next week.